Education has always been a cornerstone of society, shaping individuals, communities, and even entire nations. But have you ever wondered how teaching and learning are guided by different principles and beliefs? These guiding principles are what we call the philosophies of education. Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be diving into the seven major philosophies of education, each offering unique ideas about why, what, and how we teach. These philosophies are not just abstract theories, they influence the way classrooms are designed, the role of teachers, and even how students are expected to learn. Understanding them give us insight into the different approaches that have shaped education over time. But before that, let me introduce our speakers first. First, we have Dixie Charm Lauta, Jillian Larayos, Vishnu Marquello, and yours truly, Christine Marie Rivera. So each of us has prepared to explain one or more of these philosophies in a way that is both informative and relatable. As we move forward, we encourage you to take note of key ideas and reflect on how these philosophies resonate with your own experiences as students or future educators. Before we start, again, I am Christine Marie Rivera and I will begin by discussing constructivism and essentialism. So let's dive in and start with the first philosophy, constructivism. Constructivism, why teach? Focuses on developing intrinsically motivated, independent learners. So constructivism encourages students to be curious and motivated from within. The idea is to make learning interesting and relevant so that students want to learn not just because they are told to. This helps them become independent thinkers who don't rely on teachers for every answer. Learners are equipped with skills to construct knowledge and make meaning of information. So in constructivism, students don't just memorize facts, they learn how to understand and use information in meaningful ways instead of just taking in knowledge. They build their own understanding by connecting new information with what they already know. For an instance, when learning about ecosystem, a student might connect the concept of food chains to their own observations of nature, like seeing animals and plants interact outside. This helps them understand the bigger picture of how everything is connected. Okay. So next is what to teach. Emphasis on teaching learners how to learn. So constructivism is less about just giving students facts and more about showing them how to learn on their own. The focus is on teaching students how to ask questions, find answers, and think critically. So, for an instance, in history class, instead of just memorizing dates and events, a teachers might encourage students to ask questions like, why did this event happen? Or how did it affect the world? These make students more engaged and help them develop critical thinking skills. Next is skills include searching, critiquing, evaluating, and reflecting on information. So students need to learn on how to find useful information, question it, and decide whether it's trustworthy. They are also encouraged to reflect on what they've learned and think about how it fits with what they already know. Next is learners construct with new knowledge by posing questions, researching, and making insights. So constructivism encourages students to take an active role on their learning by asking their own questions and conducting research to find answers. So they are not passive recipients of information but active participants in the learning process. Next is how to teach. Teachers provide data, experiences to encourage hypothesizing, predicting, researching, and inventing. So instead of just telling students the answers, teachers provide them with information, problems, or experiences that help students think critically. So this allows students to make predictions and hypotheses, which can later test and refine. Next, classrooms are interactive and promote a dialogical exchange of ideas between learners and teachers. So a key aspect of constructivist teaching is the interaction between students and teachers. The classroom should feel like a conversation where students ask questions and share ideas with the teacher and with each other. So this allows a deeper understanding of the material. Next is the teacher's role is to facilitate the process, not deposit knowledge. So in constructivism, the teacher doesn't just give students facts to memorize. Instead, they act as guides, helping students figure out answers on their own. So the teachers provide support and encouragement, but let students take charge on their learning. So for example, A teacher might ask, "What do you think will happen if we add more salt to the water?" Rather than just explaining the science behind it. This encourages students to think, experiment, and come to their own conclusion. Okay, next is the view of learners. So learners are active builders and creators of meaning and knowledge. So constructivism sees students as creators of knowledge. So their minds are like puzzles where pieces of new information are put together to form a clear picture. So this means students are not just an empty vessels waiting to be filled with knowledge. They actively build understanding by connecting new information with what they already know. Next is their mind are not empty but filled with ideas waiting to be facilitated by the teacher. So constructivists believe that students already have some ideas and experiences. The teacher's job is to help these ideas grow, not replace them with new ones. Let's move on to the second philosophy, essentialism. So why teach? Teachers transmit traditional moral values and intellectual knowledge to prepare students to be a model citizen. So essentialism believes that schools should not only teach academic subjects but also focus on shaping students into good and responsible people. Teachers pass on both academic knowledge and moral lessons that prepare students to live in society and contribute positively. So, for example, a teacher may not just teach how to read and write, but also values like honesty, respect, and responsibility so that students could grow up to be thoughtful and productive members of society. Okay, so next is what to teach. So focus on academic content, particularly the three R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. So essentialism puts a strong emphasis on the basic. So the idea is that these fundamental skills are the foundation of all future learning and should be mastered first. Next is traditional disciplines such as math, natural science, history, and literature. So essentialism believes that students should be taught subjects that have stood out the test of time and are important for understanding the world. So these subjects give students a broad base of knowledge, so fronts upon watered down academic content or vocational courses. So essentialism tends to avoid courses that are seen as less academic, such as vocational or technical education, unless they are complement traditional academic learning. So the focus is on core academic subjects. Okay, so next, how to teach. So emphasis on mastery of subject matter and intellectual or moral modeling. So in essentialism, it is important that students not only understand the material but also master it. Teachers also act as role models, showing students how to behave and think with integrity. Next is teachers act as a fountains of knowledge using prescribed textbook, drill methods, and other techniques to promote memorization and discipline. So essentialism relies heavily on structured learning. Teachers provide direct instruction and expect students to memorize important facts. So now, the view of teaching. So teachers are seen as intellectual and moral models focusing on rigorous academic content. So in the essentialist view, teachers are expected to be knowledgeable and serve as examples of good character. So their main job is to ensure that students master the key subjects and grow into disciplined and well-rounded individuals. Next is a longer school day and year may be required to master essential knowledge. So because the essentialist curriculum is focused on deep knowledge and mastery, it might require more time. So this means longer school days or extended school years to ensure that students fully understand the material. Now, let's move on to the next topic. I will pass down the stage to the next reporter.
Hi everyone, this is Julian Larayu speaking. So today I'm going to explain to you the progressivist or progressivism and perennialism in education. So, okay, let's start to progressivism. So why do teachers teach progressivism? Why we have progressivism? So progressivism is a way of teaching that helps students become smart and thoughtful citizens who can make good decisions in the future or in a democratic society. So So teachers who follow this idea believes that it is not just about the facts, but it is about preparing students for the future in a world that is always changing. So do you agree that the world is always changing? Okay, so what makes progressivism special? So progressivist teachers focus on helping students understand change. Life is always changing, and progressivists believe that the only thing that doesn't change is change itself. So they teach students how to adapt these changes instead of just memorizing facts that is not might be useful in the future. So why teach students to adapt? Why? Progressivist teachers use a curriculum. That's what students learn in school. So it is relevant to students' life. So this means that lessons relate to the things that are important to you or the students. Teachers make sure that what you're learning connects to your own experiences and things that might happen in the real world. So, what are the subjects do students learn in progressivism schools or progressive schools? So, in progressive schools, students learn about many things such as science, technology, and social issues. So, these subjects shows that progress and change are important, and students learn how to handle these changes by understanding them. So, how do progressivist teachers teach? Progressivist teachers believe that learning by doing is the best way to understand things. They don't just give you a book and ask you to memorize information. Instead, they believe you should experience things to really learn. So, for example, kanang way of teaching ni Sir Igot, do you think it's progressivism? So yes, it is progressivism. Sa iha pa ng mga questions, no? It's always about you understanding yourself. It is always about like your experience kung naa na bagid ka ni ara nga state sa imong kuan, sa imong kaugalingon kung do you really understand yourself. So one of the example also is problem solving. Teachers help students to solve problems using scientific method to test ideas and find solutions. Hands-on activities. Students do activities, experiments, or projects that teach them how to apply what they learn to real situations. So, what teaching methods do progressivist teachers use? Unsa man? So, some of the methods progressivist teachers use to help students learn includes field trips, interactive games and puzzles, problem solving activities. So they use this to help students learn and have experience to the things that might be useful in the future. So by teaching students these skills, progressivist teachers help them grow into smart, responsible people who can think for themselves. So they teach students how to make good decisions, solve real-world problems, and adapt to changing world. This is how they prepare students to become enlightened and intelligent citizens in a democratic society. So next we have the perennialism. So what should we teach in perennialism? So in perennialism, the curriculum focuses on what has been proven to be important for all people, no matter where they live or what time period they are in. So it is called universal curriculum because it teaches ideas that everyone should know. So that the subjects are mainly focused on humanities like literature, philosophy, histories, the great stories and books of histories, the study of big ideas and how we think of life, the important events and lessons from the past. So this type of education doesn't just focus on learning skills or for a job career like in a vocational training, but instead it helps students to understand big important ideas that have lasted through time. It is more like history. So mga kuan siya mga sinauna or kanang mga events nga kinahanglan natong mabaw-an kay importante na siya og kanang proven na siya sa daghang nga tawo. So the great books, one of the key ideas in perennialism is the great books. So these are books passed down through history because they contain wisdom, knowledge that are valuable for everyone. So some examples include books from ancient thinkers like ni Plato and ni Aristotle, as well as books from the Middle Ages and modern times. Mortimer Adler, a famous philosopher, said that these books teach us the most important lessons about life, and each new generations should read them to learn to learn from the past. So, how is perennialism thought? Unsa man ni siya. So let's talk about how perennialism's teachers teach. In perennialist classrooms, the teachers are in charge. They decide what to teach and how to teach it. The teacher does not always let the students' personal interest or experience guides the lesson. Instead, the teachers are the one who use creative methods and time-tested techniques that are thought to be best for training students' minds. So one important way perennialist teachers teach is through something called Socratic dialogue. So unsa man ni siya? This means that students have discussions and ask deep questions to make and to understand big ideas, just like the great philosophers nila Plato, nila Aristotle. So these discussions help students understand the most important ideas in history. So take note that perennialism is more on history. It is like more on the past events nga mamahimot ang mo relate mga ingon ana nga pwede na tong makuan ron atong mabuhat sa present nga kanang generation, so we can learn from it and kanang mamahimot nga mo grow ni ana. So it's very important gyud nga kanang naapod ang perennialism nga pagtudlo. So take note lang gyud nga ang progressivism and perennialism is different. Perennialism is about changes, real life experiences that could be applied to the real world, while the perennialism is all about the past events, past histories that we could learn and we could reflect from it. So why is this important? Why does perennialism is so important? So on reasoning and timeless knowledge is that these ideas help students grow into wise, thoughtful people. When students learn to think carefully and understand big ideas, they are better to be able to make good choices in their lives and control their emotions. So, ningon pa si Aristotle nga, we are all rational animals. Are you an animal? Are you a rational animal? So, it means that we can think logically and make good decisions. Dili nga, so if we don't teach students how to use their thinking skills, they won't be able to control their emotions, make good choices in life. So, Aristotle believed that we have the ability to think and to reason out, and that is a very important part of being a human. It is for us to practice our brains, think critically, think clearly. We might let our feelings and impulses controls us if kanang wala pa ani. So this can stop us from making smart, wise choices in life. So overall, have you understood the perennialism and progressivist or progressivism? So to summarize, perennialism is a way of teaching that believes schools should help students develop their thinking abilities and learn from the great ideas of the past. This type of education focuses on timeless subjects that are important for everyone, no matter where they live. So it helps students become better thinkers, better decision makers, and better people. So overall, Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer some of your questions if you have any questions.
Existentialism. It helps students appreciate themselves as an individual and accept responsibilities for their thoughts, feelings, and actions. The teacher helps students find themselves by exposing them to various paths and creating an environment where they can choose freely. Existentialism is where students become more self-aware of themselves and they try to learn to navigate through these changes, responsibility, new feelings, emotions, and thoughts. As a teacher, it is better for you to give the students more choices to choose for themselves, and why you should try to give them as many choices as possible while making sure that they can choose freely. Students are given a variety of options from which they can choose from. Humanities provides students with various experiences that will mold their creativity and self-expression. It teaches students their potential as an individual and encourages imagination and creativity rather than imitating and copying established models. As a teacher, you need to encourage creativity. Existentialism wants you to focus on your self-expression and your potential as an individual. Being imaginative helps you express your own style, ideas, and opinions. Existential method focuses on the individual and will require a great amount of interaction from their teacher, who, in turn, will relate to each of their students openly and honestly to help students find their place in society. The teacher should remain non-judgmental and should not forcefully impose their values to their students. Behavioral scholars shape students' behavior by providing a favorable environment for them and are after students that are able to exhibit a desirable behavior in society. Behaviorists teach students to respond favorably to various stimuli in the environment. The teachers arrange the environmental conditions so that the student will be able to respond to a stimuli like light, the room temperature, the furniture, size and quantity of the visual aids to get the desired responses from the students. The teachers have to make the stimuli interesting and clear to capture the students' attention. Their environment needs to appear positive, bright, and captivating, and you have to make sure that they are comfortable and that the room is not too bright and too hot for the students to respond.
Hello and welcome everyone. I am Vishnu Marguelo, your last reporter. Now, let's start with linguistic philosophy. Why teach linguistic philosophy? It is to develop communication skills in learners, enhance their ability to articulate, express, and convey values from life experiences, enable learners to express themselves clearly and communicate their ideas effectively, equip learners with the skills to send clear messages and receive them accurately. Now, as stated from the first phrase, it is to develop communication skills. It is the reason why we have linguistic philosophy. It's to develop communication skills. It is to provide information, to one another. As we all know, as learners, we have different ideas. We have different ideas coming from our mind that we want to convey. We want to express. That's why in linguistic philosophy, we can do that. We have the skill to provide information and to articulate and express our ideas and emotions. What to teach in linguistic philosophy? It is to teach learners to communicate clearly, focusing on sending and receiving messages effectively. Communication takes place in three ways. Verbal, which is oral or written communication focusing on word choice and enrichment. Second will be non-verbal, is where communication through body language. Third will be paraverbal. It is where how something is said, including tone and manner. It is also our responsibility to expand learners' vocabularies and teach correct, coherent, and precise language use for effective communication. How to teach in linguistic philosophy? Use the experiential method to teach language and communicate by engaging learners in real-life communication experiences. Facilitate communication among learners, encouraging the exchange of words and ideas. As we all know, communication is an integral part in the whole world, which is why it is advisable to use experiential method so that the learners experience real-life communication, and also so that they can articulate how they send their ideas effectively and to decode the message intended for them. Now that we know the different philosophies of education, let's move on to how should we formulate our own philosophy of education. Let's start. Here's a quote from Socrates, where he said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." What essentially means is that if you do not analyze, if you do not articulate the ideas, your emotions, your life itself, it is not worth to live for. So that is why you should examine your life. You should analyze the moment, in this moment you are now. If it is worth living for. Now, let's start with our introduction. You have been acquainted with various philosophies in which you ask to yourself, which do you identify yourself into, and what is your personal philosophy of education? You will formulate it in this second lesson. Your philosophy education is your window to the world and compass life, which is why it is good to put such philosophy education in writing. This also means it is reflected in your attitude towards problems and life in your dealings with students, colleagues, parents, and administrators. What this essentially means is that our philosophy of education is our window, is our eyes to the world, and compass, which is our guide in life. It is also because this can reflect our attitude towards problems and life, and how to deal with students, colleagues, parents, and administrators. This lesson will articulate your thoughts on how you perceive the learner, the right values on what and how you must teach. This way, you will find yourself more consistent in your actions and decisions to dealing with other people. Thus, you can make a difference in the life of the young, for the teacher has tremendous power. All in all, your philosophy of education must be clear on the what and how you should teach, the relation to your students, to make a difference. Now, here's an example of a philosophy education from Teacher Macuela. My philosophy of education as a grade school teacher. I believe that every child has a natural interest and capable of learning. I believe that every child is unique. I believe that every child can be influenced but not totally by their environment. I believe that every child is full of ideas, and it is my task to draw out these ideas. What she intended here is that she believes that every child is unique. She believes that every child is capable of learning, is capable of knowledge, and they are much more curious about the world. And she believes that every child have full of ideas in their mind, and thus it is her job to draw out these ideas, opinions, their expressions out. I believe there are unchanging values in changing times and must be passed on to every child by my modeling, value inculcation, and integration in my lessons. She emphasizes that through her modeling, her values will be unchanged as time moves on. These learners will see these values as an integral part of them. I believe that my task is to facilitate the development of every child to the optimum and to the maximum by reaching out to all children without bias and prejudice, making every child to feel good and confident through their experiences of success. helping every child to master the basic skills of reading, communication, arithmetic, and computer skills. Teaching my subject matter with mastery so that every child will use their skill to acquire knowledge, skills and values in which for them to go beyond basic literacy and basic numeracy. Integrating the unchanging values of respect, love, and care for those who are different to them in my lessons. Constantly practicing these values to serve as a model, strengthening the value formation through hands-on, minds-on, hearts-on experiences inside and outside of the classroom. Providing activities meant to develop the body, mind, and spirit. Teaching not only for them to learn, but for them on how to learn. Teacher Macrina's philosophy in this section, it is her task for the development for every child, for every learner, to have moral values, the confidence in oneself, the mastery of basic skills, and it should go beyond that. The development of the body, the mind, and the spirit, and the importance of knowledge, and how should they learn them. Let's add to what you already know. Your philosophy education is your concept of the learner, what must be taught and how. Teacher Macrina assent with a Christian philosophy because she wants to provide every child with activities that develops the learner's body, mind, and spirit. She also believes in the behaviorist philosophy because she accepts that the learners can be influenced by the environment, but only not totally. She is also a constructivist and a philosophy, for she does not agree that the learners have an empty mind. Rather, that the child is full of ideas and that it is her task to draw it out from them. She is convinced that her primary task is the child's mastery of basic skills like reading, communicating, arithmetic, and computer skills, for she believes that these skills prepares the child to go beyond the basics. Her behaviorist philosophy makes her work hard for the learners to experience success in which it contributes to a favorable learning of environment. Teacher Macrina believes in unchanging values of respect, honesty, love, and care to the learners towards their peers and inculcates them in her lessons. She also believes that modeling these values is the effective way to teach the learners these values. She also applies the progressivist dictum, learning by doing and the whole world is a classroom. In this sense, she teaches learners not only subject matter but also how to learn. This is how one's philosophy education governs one's practice as a teacher. All in all, she emphasizes the use of different philosophy of educations in her learning as a window and a compass to her life. In this way, Teacher Macrina knows her task and goal very well, and that through these philosophies, she provided the learners the values she wants to instill with the children. That will be all, everyone, and thank you for listening. Once again, I am Vishnu T. Marcuelo, accompanied by Ms. Rivera, Ms. Lauta, and Ms. Larayos as the group presenter of Group 7. That will be all. Thank you.